So, hey guys, today we're going to be talking about a phenomenon I recently noticed. So, it wasn't super apparent to me until probably around Malice. So, the thing about Malice, and not just Malice, well, Apollosa isn't that big of a part of it, I guess, but Malice and the Underground protects you from essentially kind of battle. So, we don't even necessarily need Apollosa. Instead, we could have, for example, IP, right? And IP would not be destroyable by battle because of this effect right here. While you control a Malice Link monster, your opponent's monsters can only target Malice Link monsters for attacks. So if we have any generic boss monster on our board, whether it's kind of like small, big, we can't really do anything against it by battle. So that would be something like, I guess, I don't know, even an Avramax. What would we do against Avramax? So Avramax is, well, we're not necessarily playing Malice ourselves, right? But a common way to beat Mekk-Knight Crusadia Avramax is just with non-targeting removal. But not just necessarily Avramax, but just any monster really that we would want to run over by battle. We just won't be able to because of this field spell. And this isn't actually the first instance of this, but what ends up happening here is it makes it so the battle phase no longer feels useful, which kind of sucks because the battle phase, to an extent, should be kind of a resource, right? So, but let's assume maybe you're playing Kashtira. You could be playing, I don't know, like Branded or something, and you have like relatively big guys, I guess. So you have 2.4k, 2.5k, 2.8k here, and then with like Branded, we have like Aluber 1.8k, Fallen of Albaz at also 1.8k, I believe. So let's see, yeah, 1.8k. And then we also have ideas like Vistrals at 2.5k, right? So now the problem here is that if we have some moderately sized kind of interruption, not even necessarily a boss monster, like let's go with Herald of Arclight. Well, 600 attack, 1000 defense. We wouldn't be able to remove this if it were just additionally kind of on an end board with certain cards. And there are quite a few actually. Let's see, real quick, game monster sent for the hand or main deck to the graveyard is banished instead. So this wouldn't work exactly what I'm thinking of right now. So let's see, do we have something else that might be a little bit better fit? Let's do FA Don Dragster instead, I guess. This will be 300 times 7, so 2100 attack, right? So after this negates, they'll drop down to 1.9k, meaning you wouldn't be able to necessarily run it over with these guys, but we could run it over with any of these guys, which is fine, I guess. And there's probably other smaller kind of boss monsters, I guess, that we could run over with a normal summon, potentially even. Are there any like 2k guys that come to mind? Like, not really, not for me, but yeah. So the thing about like Herald of Arclight and FA Dragster that would make them a little bit more annoying. So Herald of Arclight has absolutely pathetic stats, right? But if you can't run over it by battle, it's just an Omni Negate you can't do anything about to an extent, right? So when you look at the Malice end board of like Apollosa plus some back row, and then maybe additionally a firewall, right? So even if you take away the firewall's effect for removal, then like just special summoning a Malice monster would prevent you from running over this Apollosa. And you can in fact summon more than one. So we could get like two, I guess, like uh, two different Mouse Link monsters on the field, so you would have to run over and attack those guys twice before being able to run over the Appaloosa. But specifically, the Appaloosa that you make in the Mouse combo will be two materials, being 1.6k attack, right? So you would be able to run over it with a normal summoned Aluber, Fallen of Albaz, a special summon like Magdamut, Worm, any Cash, for example, would be able to easily run over the Appaloosa. I'm pretty sure even Sword Soul Moyi could run over the Appaloosa, right? But this has two negates on it, essentially. And you'll be able to, for the most part, use both of the negates on the Appaloosa because of Mouse and Thunderground protecting it, right? That would apply to an IP as well. You wouldn't be forced to use your IP until like the optimal moment to use IP to make SP if you were to be using this instead, right? And I think this, to an extent, is kind of disgusting because this removes the battle phase as a resource, and actually, because of this, this is giving your going second ability. Well, it's not giving your going a second ability anything. It's just making it weaker, right? So if we were to look at Sprite, for example, they also kind of have ways to deal with just the battle phase in general, having like Gamma Burst, Sprite Pixies, the ability to make Avramax, and technically also like Underworld Goddess with IP, but a lot of the earlier imports I recall they would have IP, right? And that would allow you to like summon anything, and all of the sprites are pretty small, right? 1k attack, 1.9k defense, 1k defense here, 1.1k attack, 1.8k defense, 1.2k attack, 1.4k attack, and then yeah, that's about it, right? So if you run over one of their guys, that would affect them negatively, or be able to remove some interaction, I guess, right? Whatever happens to be relevant for you. So assumption here would be main phase, activate Sprite Elf effect after I do something. Then you have like Sprite Red, Sprite Carrot, probably in defense because they have like alright defense stats, I guess. Not good enough to deal with like a Cash monster or like Abyssal, but moderately sufficient. If necessary, you could also grab Sprite Pixies to kind of try to protect like your IP. There is that idea as well. But, you know, being this small, if I go battle phase, or just threatening to go battle phase in general with any monster while you have IP on the field, this just forces you to make something with IP, right? So we're essentially using our battle phase and our monsters' attacks as like a separate resource almost, right? But a lot of these decks here, the newer decks, well, not like every deck has this necessarily, but we are essentially losing a resource against a lot of newer decks. So we can just go over a couple of the cards that enable this. So we have Radiant Burst, which isn't played right now, but essentially when you flip this over, the only thing you can target for attacks, and you also must attack, would be Combined Creation with its 5k stat line, which none of these normal summons will beat, I'll tell you that much. And also, this will be able to negate any activated on field monster effect as well. So there's one, and if we go back even further, with Therion, technically the Therion field spell also protects from battle. This generically protects anything from battle. Once per turn, when a monster is destroyed by battle and sent to the graveyard. Oh, wrong effect. It's up here. Once per turn, if your monster would be destroyed by battle, you can send one Therion card or Endless Engine Argyro system from your deck to the graveyard instead. So that wouldn't be able to protect Herald of Arclight because it has the effect to kind of do a macro. But with Don Dragster specifically, that would work fine, and then you wouldn't be able to out Don Dragster, IP, Appaloosa, whatever. you cannot out these guys by battle, which gives a better opportunity to use their effect, I guess, or more opportunities. And sometimes that is kind of mission critical, I guess. But let's keep going. What else do we have for battle protection? I guess we have Link Karibo or Nightmare Phoenix, which are both used in like Snake Eye for battle protection type deal. And then we have Yubel with the Nightmare Pain, and then the inherent ability of essentially all of the Yubel monsters where they cannot be destroyed by battle, but you must do battle with them, preventing you from being able to destroy anything uh, during the battle phase, which is pretty brutal in its own way, I guess. And then if we go to Voiceless Voice, Voiceless Voice as well as Barrier, which makes it so you cannot target any monsters, and also you can only target ritual monsters for attacks. And in this case, the attack target will likely be a 4100 Skull Guardian, Protector of the Voiceless Voice. And this also protects, I believe, Apollosa now. Dude, your opponents can only target ritual monsters for attacks. Link monsters are not ritual monsters. That's pretty clear cut, I guess. Well, yeah, crystal clear, I suppose. And then even with Vanquish Soul, so Vanquish Soul at least isn't like going to be splashable. Like I don't think you could splash anything. Wait, are all of these splashable? Oh my god, they're all splashable. Like maybe they're not like the best thing to splash, or like maybe they might be a bit engine heavy, but all of these are genuinely splashable. Wow. But anyways, yeah, you have Rock of the Vanquisher, which would be able to protect your monsters from being destroyed by battle with this effect. For Hyur, while you control a Vanquished Soul monster, your opponent's monsters can only target monsters you control with the highest attack their choice if tied for attacks. So yeah, let's say I have a 2.4k Apollosa and a 3k Caesar Valius. Just this Caesar Valius would protect this Apollosa, I guess, yeah. So that would work, I guess. If you were playing like Fiendsmith Vanquished Soul, I guess that would be technically doable, kind of plausible, and you'd be protecting this. Or you know, you could make an IP, and that's like maybe a little bit easier. But yeah, it would also be getting protected by Rock of the Vanquisher. So how would you even be able to potentially threaten Razin in some decks? Like you just might not have the potential to do so. So Razin is a 1.8k attack guy, 1.5k defense guy. You can't threaten the Rock either because its ability ends up protecting itself as well. So if you try to, well, you have to do something in order to win against, I guess, Vanquish Soul, right? So you'll probably have to summon a monster or something. So let's assume you summon a monster. Now, it's going to be poppable by Razin. So yeah, we normal summon Razin effect to like pop that monster, and then we search, tag out into Caesar Valius potentially, and then that's another pop. And Caesar Valius is going to be 3k attack, for example. And depending on where you summon the card, like it might be relevant. Like maybe you were playing a Link deck, so you had to make a Link 1, and Razin was summoned to the other, like right below the other EMC before you actually special summon the Link monster, because it's pretty much something that's guaranteed to happen, I guess, because you need to do so to play the game. Just for example, right? We pop that monster, you don't have an opportunity to attack the Razin, you don't have opportunity to do anything to Rock, and it's kind of doomed, I guess, because then you'll get hit by a Raigeki essentially, and then maybe a pop from Caesar Valleys as well. And yeah, I mean, I think it's really more notable when we had more copies of Fenrir for Vanquish Soul, where we would like actually just special summon Fenrir. And then Fenrir is actually a pretty big guy, and that would be preventing you from running over potentially Rosin as well that way. So a lot of ideas here, I guess, and yeah, it's pretty gross, I'd say. I would even potentially call it unfair. Well, all right, let's see. I guess to an extent, the Millennium cards are also like this, but not like as bad. Well, these protections here are kind of generic. This isn't as generic, but it's pretty difficult to run over the Exodia fusion, which I cannot find here for whatever reason. Okay, go on. This guy gets a lot of attack, so this is difficult to run over by battle. And that's all there is to say about this guy. It's not really that big of a deal. I think there was... Oh, right. Horus. This also is annoying to deal with because of this effect. Soft once per turn. So if you control multiple King Sarcophagus, you would reasonably be able to do this multiple times. At the start of the damage step, if your Horus monster battles an opponent's monster, you can send that opponent's monster to the graveyard. This is effectively protecting your Horus monsters from battle, and only your Horus monsters, not like every single monster that you could potentially be playing. And then there was also one more here. Your opponent cannot target Horus monsters on the field with card effects, and cannot target Horus monsters for attacks, which is also like kind of a form of, I guess, battle protection. So yeah, randomly it just feels like you just have less ability to do things. Because, you know, the battle phase doesn't really do anything unless you can drop your opponent's life points to 0, which I mean, they'll probably be full, you know? So even if we have Code Link, Nightmare Phoenix, plus a small Appaloosa, there's no shot in hell that you could run over the Appaloosa uh, at all because it's co-linked with Nightmare Phoenix, so it's protected from battle. And then there's also the fact that they have an Appaloosa and stuff, right? So how are you summoning enough things to be able, and big things at that, to just be able to run into the Appaloosa kind of for game, right? That's just not a thing that's going to happen, I guess. So if we go back further, you know, with, let's say, for example, Tri Brigade. Well, actually, now that I think about Eldlik, doesn't that have battle protection as well? Or is that just against card effects? I'll check in a second. But with a Tri Brigade list, you would usually make... Well, you would usually set Revolt Pass, and you would have double Dragon Lords. Like this guy, which has this really weak stat line. This counts as an Ancient Warrior monster, right? So it's still only 1.6k attack boosted. So, you know, would be difficult to try to run this over with like a Fallen of Elbaz or a Luber or whatever, right? So against this, we could reasonably summon, normal summon a Luber, try to add a thing, whether it resolves or not, it doesn't super matter. Then we can force the activation of one of your cards by saying, I want to go battle, and then you lose one interaction, right? To protect maybe the double Dragon Lords. Or you just go ahead and give up the double Dragon Lords interrupt and let me give up my battle phase to run over the double Dragon Lords. And that was like a thing, right? It was kind of a decision, and it kind of gave the game a little more depth. And you kind of had to know how to really utilize your battle phase, either like by actually utilizing it or just threatening it, right? That's kind of the idea. And also, real quick, is this cannot be destroyed by card effects. Oh yeah, it's still destructible by battle. Yep. So that is to say, like, I feel like the battle phase, to extent, like, if it felt useless before in the sense that, you know, you didn't have to actually use battle to remove monsters because you have so many like monster effects and removal tools that you would be able to remove like your opponent's entire board before going for lethal. Now it's like you can't even really do anything with the battle phase. You have to like do all your stuff outside of the battle phase. Before it felt like you still had an option, I guess. Now it feels like you don't actually have that option anymore, right? Like against Nightmare Pain, you have to break the board and then go battle phase, and then that means order, remove your opponent's cards, attack them for damage. Essentially, we just completely lost the option to remove cards by battle, so we cannot use the battle phase as a tool for that anymore, I suppose, right? Well, feels like this is happening more, but you know, even against like Ryziel, this is pretty annoying. So even if we disregard like Plasma Hull, disregard plugin, yeah, Detonator has battle protection. So if you just somehow manage to put something on the board that's bigger than Detonator, you can't even run this guy over by battle. And you know, this protection doesn't just apply to Detonator. This applies to literally every single XYZ monster. So if our opponent here had a Baguska, we can't even run over like Baguska by battle, for example, right? And even if we didn't have like Detonator, I think Starliege also might have this effect. Let's see, Starliege. Starliege, Photon, Blast Dragon. Nope. This is just card effects, not by battle. At least, not that one necessarily. Just checking real quick. Okay, neither of those guys protect from battle either. But, yeah. Battle just feels a lot less useful now. Like, I mean, I guess you could be playing Tenpai, but same kind of deal, right? If we aren't considering the going second cards, if we're just considering the engine, like, what was the Tenpai card? Well, what are the Tenpai cards really doing against this? So I think it's fine against, like, maybe, like, a Disc Coliseum, but against Nightmare Pain in particular, it's like, okay, this is just a effect constantly going. And you would just be essentially just killing yourself, I guess, if Nightmare Pain were to be up. So, yeah. That's all I got for you guys today, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye.